Cain and Abel were the first sons of Adam and Eve after their expulsion from the Garden of Eden, according to the biblical book of Genesis. The story tells us that Cain killed Abel after God accepted Abel's offering but rejected Cain's. Driven by jealousy, Cain committed the first murder in the Bible. The offerings of Cain and Abel. Adam had relations with his wife Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the Lord's help, I've brought forth a man." Later she gave birth to Abel. Abel became a shepherd, while Cain worked the land. In time, Cain brought an offering to the Lord from the fruits of the soil. Abel also made an offering, select portions from the firstborn of his flock. The Lord favored Abel and his offering but not Cain's. Reading the early chapters of Genesis can be challenging. These stories come from ancient oral traditions, along with later edits made over centuries. Modern scholars still work to untangle these sources and place them in historical context. But today, we're often more focused on what might have actually happened and how to make logical sense of it all. The ancients, however, valued stories for what they were, letting meaning take the lead, even if the facts didn't always line up. The trouble began when the brothers each offered sacrifices to God, but only Abel's was accepted. How did the first two men on earth even know to offer sacrifices? The law of Moses, which outlines sacrificial practices, hadn't been given yet. And more puzzling, why did God reject Cain's offering? The text gives no clear reason. Interestingly, an ancient Sumerian story about conflicts between nomads and early farmers may have influenced this biblical account. The first murder. So Cain became furious and his face fell. Then the Lord said to him, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what's right, won't you be accepted? But if not, sin is crouching at your door. It desires you, but you must rule over it." Then Cain said to Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were there, Cain attacked and killed his brother. The Lord asked Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain replied, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" And the Lord said, "What have you done? Your brother's blood cries out from the ground. Now you're cursed and driven from the land, which opened its mouth to receive his blood. From now on, the soil will not yield crops for you. You'll be a restless wanderer on the earth." Cain responded, "This punishment is too much. You're driving me away, and I'll be hidden from your presence. I'll be a wanderer, and anyone who finds me will kill me." But the Lord answered, "Not so. Whoever kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord placed a mark on Cain to protect him from being killed. Am I my brother's keeper? Is a powerful rhetorical question. It suggests what we now see as a moral truth, that people should care for one another. As for the mark on Cain, the text offers no detail. Some Christian traditions later linked it to the number 666, the mark of the beast from the book of Revelation. Cain in the land of Nod. Cain then left the Lord's presence and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. There, he had a wife who gave birth to a son named Enoch. Cain began building a city and named it after his son. What has long puzzled readers is this: where did Cain's wife come from? At this stage in the story, only Adam, Eve, and Cain have been mentioned. This is where we need to step back and consider what the writers of Genesis were really focused on. They weren't aiming to provide strict historical detail. They were concerned with deeper, larger themes. Be fruitful and multiply. Genesis 9 verse 1 is the first command given to humans after their creation. But how could that be carried out? At this point in the story, Eve is the only woman on earth. Taken literally, for the command to be fulfilled, one of her sons would have to commit incest with their mother. But the writers wouldn't allow that. There's no mention of incest in the first family. So, they created a woman from the land of Nod and inserted her into the story to resolve this issue. This same narrative logic explains why God rejected Cain's sacrifice. The reason itself isn't the focus. What matters is that Cain's murder of Abel introduces the first act of bloodshed. It sets in motion the arrival of evil and the eventual corruption of the world, leading up to the flood. Genesis 4 verses 17 to 26 outlines the descendants of Cain. Here, human civilization begins to take shape through the rise of cities, music, and metalwork, including both tools and weapons. The violence of Cain carries into the next generation. In contrast, Genesis 5 lists the descendants of Adam through his third son, Seth, considered a more noble line. That line ends with Noah, seen as righteous in God's eyes. Cain and Abel in Jewish and Christian tradition. In their teachings on the Torah, the rabbis spoke against the theme of sibling rivalry, a recurring element in Genesis. They taught that Abel, as a shepherd, held a better occupation, giving him time and space to reflect on God. He was seen as humble, while Cain lacked that humility. In Jewish tradition, Cain represents exile from the land of Israel, a punishment for sin that is echoed throughout the prophets. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus condemns the scribes and Pharisees, predicting the suffering of his followers. And so upon you will come all the righteous blood shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to that of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, who was killed between the temple and the altar. By the time the Gospels were written in the 1st century CE, it was widely believed that all the prophets of Israel had been martyred. In the New Testament's letter to the Hebrews, Jesus' sacrifice is directly compared to Abel's. The text suggests that both Abel and Jesus shared the same deep faith in God, something Cain apparently lacked. Hebrews 12 verse 24. Cain and Abel in Islam. In the Quran, the story of Cain and Abel is used to teach about the gravity of murder and its consequences. Prophet, tell them the true story of Adam's two sons. Each made an offering, and one was accepted while the other was not. The rejected brother said, I will kill you, but the other replied, God only accepts from those who are mindful of him. If you raise your hand to kill me, I won't raise mine to kill you. I fear God, the Lord of all worlds. I would rather you bear my sins and yours, and be sent to the fire, such is the fate of wrongdoers. But the one was overcome by temptation. He killed his brother and became one of the losers. Then God sent a raven, which scratched at the ground to show him how to bury the body. Cain said, Woe is me! Could I not have been like this raven and hidden my brother's corpse? And he became full of regret. Later Islamic traditions taught that it was the devil who influenced Cain and taught him how to kill. Another story says the brothers quarreled over who would marry a daughter of Adam and Eve. In art and literature, Cain and Abel have been depicted in the works of Titian, Peter Paul Rubens, and William Blake. In Shakespeare's Hamlet, written around 1600, Claudius and Hamlet mirror the figures of Cain and Abel, locked in a struggle for power. John Steinbeck's East of Eden, 1952, later adapted into a major film, tells a similar story. Set between the American Civil War and World War I, it follows two generations of brothers, the second pair being twins, Aaron and Caleb, standing in for Abel and Cain. The story of Cain and Abel remains a powerful symbol in discussions about the roots of religious violence. At its core is the idea of sibling rivalry, often called the blessing rivalry. If only one son, whether Cain or Abel, Isaac or Ishmael, Esau or Jacob, or even symbolically, Jesus as the Son of God, is seen as blessed and legitimate, the question arises, how can both sets of descendants coexist in full acceptance?